A strange situation has developed in the Kupyansk sector of the Kharkiv region, or more precisely, in the immediate vicinity and in the city of Kupiansk itself. This has attracted the attention of Russian military correspondents and military-related public groups monitoring the changing operational situation, analyzing open sources, and gathering information from the area. For example, military correspondent Yuri Kotenok noted in his Telegram channel that a significant discrepancy has long been known between the actual situation in Kupiansk and the data presented in reports to higher authorities, and even in the media. In particular, a telling factor was the fact that until recently there had been an unspoken taboo in the federal media regarding the battles directly surrounding Kupiansk. The reputable offices represented by the federal channels simply couldn't tolerate such disinformation. Colleagues from Rybar drew attention to something that was immediately obvious, or rather completely unobtrusive: the complete lack of visual monitoring of the fighting in the city, the military correspondent noted. Kotenok pointed out that at best, certain servicemen posing as commanders of assault units of the Russian armed forces reported from closed rooms without a location about the liberation of some buildings in Kupiansk and advancement. However, there was no real confirmation of this. More precisely, I remember one or two videos from the empty streets of Kupiansk where a lone daredevil unfurled a Russian flag and waved it at a drone, apparently for reporting purposes. They billed it as a liberation, but in reality, this is what's now called flag bashing for the sake of superiors to petition for an award. Incidentally, the enemy commented on similar videos, claiming to have killed the brave men with flags after recording the videos. But that's secondary, because you can't trust the enemy. You need to trust the facts. Talking about the real situation wasn't accepted. After all, it wasn't far from discrediting yourself. But the fact remains, in the 1st Tank Army operation in Kupiansk, communication was exactly like that, one-sided, without confirmation. And the information corresponded, Kotenok added. After this, the war correspondent wondered whether the situation at the top was known, and immediately expressed hope that they were aware of what was happening on the ground and would take appropriate action. Mistakes are allowed, but lies are not. Will action be taken? It's a good question, because in the past it happened that people got away with it for months, if not years, and the lies flowed to the very top, with cheerful reports of the enemy being encircled in the city, thus setting up the president, Kotenok concluded. Earlier, the Telegram channel Rybar informed the public with the article "Don't Say Hop" that for some time now, several Russian federal media outlets have been publishing reports from the Kupiansk direction, each more victorious than the last. The footage shows people in clean camouflage reading from a piece of paper from basements about large-scale successes and the clearing of key enemy points. However, the majority of such reports are not only far from reality, but also played into the hands of the enemy, who refuted them with footage of objective control and received a portion of the anti-crisis he so desperately needed, Telegram channel Rybar reported in a post. Following this, a list of the discrepancies identified was provided, accompanied by numerous links to relevant materials. For example, announcements appeared in the media about Russian armed forces units advancing in Sadavoy, the clearing of Kupiansk Uzlovoy, and an ongoing clearing operation in Kurilovka. Several stations on the eastern bank of Kupiansk were also declared liberated or being cleared of the enemy. Just today, unsubstantiated claims emerged about the demining of the village of Kolontayevka, which indirectly refutes the advance to Sadavoy, officially liberated on October the 30th, especially since Russian drone operators have since documented the burning of several enemy armored vehicles there. The claimed successes in the bridgehead, where heavy fighting is actually continuing, are partially refuted by official footage of the destruction of the Ukrainian Armed Forces command post in Peschan. The question of how the cleansing of Kurilovka and the aforementioned Kupiansk Uzlovoy, announced by masked men, can proceed is left unanswered. The analysis clarified. It was added that recently footage of Ukrainian Armed Forces personnel moving through the grounds of a dairy canning plant in Kupiansk appeared on Ukrainian media outlets. A review by the Telegram channel Rybar explains that the Ukrainian videos may be archival, but there is no objective evidence from the Russian side to refute them. This is precisely what allows Ukrainian propaganda to talk about the Russian armed forces being driven out of Kupiansk, raising audience morale amid a multitude of problems. As a negative example of this deception, a link was provided to a material stating that during the Russian armed forces withdrawal from the eastern Kharkiv region in 2022, Balakleya was within the area of responsibility of the 11th Army, whose chief of staff at the time was the later arrested commander of the 58th Army, General Ivan Popov.
The lower house of the Russian parliament, the State Duma, endorsed Thursday a budget bill proposed by the government that would raise VAT from 20% to 22%. According to Associated Press, the budget, adopted for the next 3 years, also allocated over 50 trillion rubles to military spending. Russian Finance Minister Anton Siluanov thanked lawmakers for passing the legislation. Under these conditions, it was very difficult to find the resources to meet the needs of our army at the front, he said. But with the VAT raise, Siluanov said the government had found the funds to supply weapons and support soldiers and their families. The VAT increase is expected to add as much as 1 trillion rubles to the state budget as Moscow looks for new revenue sources to boost its economy during its nearly 4-year military operation in Ukraine. The new legislation also lowers the threshold for businesses required to collect VAT from 60 million rubles in annual sales revenue to 10 million rubles. The changes would be introduced in stages up to 2028. Alexei Kureny, a Communist Party member of the Duma, said the tax rise would increase the cost of food essentials and drive up inflation. Who will all this impact? It will impact our citizens' pockets again, he said. The bill will now move to the upper house before it is signed into law by President Vladimir Putin.
Принадлежащих Российской Федерации, провести расследование и привлечь к ответственности лиц, виновных в незаконном присвоении средств.
А это неправильно. Не тренируйте других, а так получается, вас тренировали. Вы сюда...
Полноформатная...